Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Life is Stellar with me, your host, Stella Bowman. Today's episode is all about social media, what I love about it, what I hate about it, and which apps I feel are better than others, and also other things you can try to do to limit your social media time and overall phone use, which I am still extremely guilty of. But you will also hear from a friend of mine and hear her discuss her thoughts on social media. But without further ado, let's just dive in. So to begin, I wanted to talk about social media today because in my previous episode, we talked about how fashion is marketed through social media. And I think that this intersects into another really complicated topic about social media and if it's bad or good. Well, I think the obvious answer to this is it's both. It has pitfalls and gems embedded into each platform. So let's start with the things I like about social media first. Social media is great because it's a way to connect with people that you've never connected with before. You can meet new people and do all this other stuff, and you can also share all your own content. Going off of this, sharing your own content and being able to gain an audience from scratch is something that is amazing about social media. That concept of everyone having a chance is something that I think we take for granted about the digital age, and also allows you to express yourself through different mediums that you may have never thought before. Another reason I love social media is the fact that you can be organized on things you never were. Need to make a vision board? Pinterest is for you. Want to find people who love the same movie as you? Tumblr or Twitter is your place. Need to keep tabs on special events and services? Instagram and Facebook can help you with that, as well as marketing your own business or content. The invention of social media is helpful because it allows everyone in the world a chance to be a self-starter, right? Which is something that is greatly beneficial in such an inherently competitive world. But social media can also suck a lot for multiple reasons. First being that it's greatly addictive. I can literally picture it right now, me on my phone at night, scrolling, texting, commenting for literal hours on end until I get no sleep and it's friggin' 3 a.m. and I have not gone to bed. It's literally so irritating how I allow that to happen so much, but social media is inherently so addictive because it almost never gets boring. The next thing about social media that sucks is that it is an idealized version of life, and I feel that this can be really app specific. So for example, with Instagram, the pictures we see from celebrities and oftentimes our peers are either photoshopped, face-tuned, have filters on them, and are like this picture perfect version of what we are. I'm guilty of that. My Instagram is 100% I don't face-tune any of my Instagram pictures, but I will remove the occasional blemish or, smooth my skin or any of that stuff. I've done before, and I also put filters on my photos and all this stuff. And while I don't think that displaying your best self online is necessarily a bad thing, it's the consumer that is constantly looking at this that can make it harmful because, you can start to think, well, why don't I look like that? And it's really not real. Another thing that I think sucks about social media is the negativity that can fester on each app. So, sometimes you just don't want to be plagued about the sad things in life going on in the world 24/7, right? But I can also see the flip side to this, in which it keeps you informed and, invested on what's going on in the world. But nonetheless, there is a lot more to discuss about this topic in particular, but I want to loop back to talking about the idealization of social media and how social media is just this idealized version of the world. Social media is terrible for your self-esteem, even if you don't want to admit it to yourself. I'm gonna be honest here, and I'm gonna say that for years I acted like I was above that. I'm not even lying. I would legit think that following tons of celebrities and seeing their bodies that don't look like mine, or even classmates and peers in my school being so confident I didn't look like them. I acted as if that didn't bother me. But it did. Obviously, I didn't even realize until I went to college and started doing some heavy self-reflection, which also sounds so cheesy, but I was starting to become more confident, and part of that was recognizing that I compare myself to literally everything I see online. And the core problem of all this is that it's all fake, you guys. It's just all fake. And you know what? Not that if you want to face-tune your photos, whatever, that's your prerogative, but celebrities will airbrush their skin, edit their bodies, and they also have all this money, and who knows what surgeries or enhancements that they're getting in real life, and not that there's anything wrong with that, because there isn't. Like, that is your prerogative. If you want to get plastic surgery or Botox or filler or anything, like, that is totally your prerogative. But it's like, it's a facade when you're putting it out there and honestly constantly reinforcing that it's real. Like, I think the Kardashians is a great example of this, because while sometimes they will readily admit that they've gotten work done, sometimes they deny other things or kind of like act like the possibility of that happening in the future is not something they would do when they have all this access to beauty treatments and money and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's like they're honest, but they're not. And I think that just contributes to like the facade of social media.
I don't want you to get like carried away. Lips aren't permanent. But like, if they ask about your lips, like, own up to it.
I don't know why you guys are even freaking out or talking about this, though.
Why?
No one needs anything. Everybody's beautiful.
No, I think if something makes you insecure and you've been feeling that way forever, who doesn't want to look amazing? See the picture I posted today and me and Courtney? Everyone thinks like she got her butt done and her hips done and all this stuff. I'm like, no, I'm legit 20 pounds heavier.
Case in point is that it's not real, right? And we can't compare ourselves to them, knowing that that's not really an achievable standard of beauty. Even males, I'm sure males on friggin' Instagram Photoshop and edit their pictures as well. So it's like when we're looking, constantly being reinforced that that's the way you should look. It's the same thing that I discussed in the last episode. But, with social media, it's like we act like it's so real and it's just not. It's like a complete facade. Another con I have is that, social media can just circulate negativity. And I don't know if this has anything to do with the app itself, but just the kind of people that the apps breed. So like when you open up a platform in which you are allowing yourself to be scrutinized or have a conversation or share an opinion, you are subjecting yourself to tons and tons of other people all around the world who aren't going to like what you have to say or just want to be rude. And even peers and whatever, obviously cyberbullying happens. I feel like that's such like an outdated and like stupid term, but it's true. Like people still can be so vile, like online. And I lied because I said that maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the apps, but I also feel like the algorithms that the apps set up make it more easy for you to find like-minded people, but also people who are like polar opposites from you. And I actually learned about this political bubble type thing in my political science class last year. But it's literally like the internet and social media just promotes staying within your own bubble. Okay, while I like hearing from like-minded people, and I think this especially applies to politics, but not just politics, I think with every topic, it's important to know all sides and opinions, not saying that certain opinions are correct or, what have you. But it's like, in order to be fully educated and be able to talk about something, I think you should know what the discourse around it is, right? But now, like, research is showing that is actually working, like, oppositely, that, like, showing us other opinions can be damaging because it just reinforces our beliefs more. And they even talked about this in an article in the Greater Good magazine called Are Social Media Driving Political Polarization? So it talks about this in more detail. The article states, if following people on social media who are more aligned with your worldview exacerbates polarization, then it follows listening to the other side will reduce polarization. However, a recent experiment found exactly the opposite. Christopher Bale and colleagues from Duke University recruited hundreds of Democrats and Republicans who were active on Twitter and then paid them to follow a Twitter bot that would retweet content from the opposite side. After a month of exposure, the Democrats retained about the same attitudes, but the Republicans ended up more conservative than when they started the study. This result suggests that polarization in the U.S. could be driven by exposure to views people disagree with rather than being separated from them by filter bubbles. And so, yeah, if I'm being honest, I'm not really sure what to make of this result besides that social media just breeds these problems. Like, this is going to sound like the weirdest friggin' analogy, but I feel like we're all like bacteria in this like petri dish and we're like festering here, and these companies are just like laughing at us while we continue to use their apps, continue to see ads, continue to engage with their content, and we're just on our phones constantly. And all we want to do is just use the apps more. Like, I swear to God, we all need to like go outside and like touch some grass or take a run because this shit just makes it so addicting. And I just feel like that's the ultimate con of it all. With all this aside, I do want to talk about my 2 favorite apps. So moving towards that, my favorite apps, very weird combination, but are TikTok and Pinterest. Like I said, a very weird combo, I'm aware, but let's just start with TikTok, which I feel like has a lot more pros than cons. So TikTok, if you aren't aware, is a freeform content app in which you post videos. You have a For You page, so the algorithm tailors your For You page to see tons of videos that they think you would want to see. You don't have to be necessarily following these creators. It's just like gonna give you tons of content. And there's a following page where you can see who you're following and the specific content that they are posting. My feed is tailored to a bunch of interests that I have, and TikTok just like knows what I like. And I feel like my FYP is my For You page is filled with tons of different people of all like races and ethnicities, which is so refreshing. So I really like that it's like diverse. I feel like I don't find that much in certain apps. It always gives me a good laugh. And I also feel like just on a creator side, it's just so accessible. Like literally anyone can go viral the way their algorithm is set up. I literally want to say that the only con I can think of is that it's addicting. And sometimes videos that should be taken down are like educational videos but have controversial topics are sometimes taken down and stuff like that. But I think that that's kind of something that every app needs to work on. But overall, I think it's just better than the average social media app, which is kind of surprising because I really had like an aversion to it at first, but then I like kind of fell in love with it. And then Pinterest. So if you don't know what Pinterest is, it's literally just like the social media app that you can create like boards and save a bunch of pictures to different boards. This helps like, if you're planning a wedding, if you're planning an event, you can kind of create like a little mood board of like what pictures or, kind of what theme you want. I use this app to give me outfit ideas, apartment inspiration, and recipes, and just, I don't know, I never find myself feeling those toxic things like comparing or things like that, like I mentioned earlier when I'm on this app, because I literally feel like I don't know, like it just feels separate. And it doesn't feel like social media. It just feels like I'm like kind of in like a Google search engine for specific things that I like, right? So I'm kind of not really in that social media mindset. And I'm really not even sure if because of this, if I have any other con besides that it's addicting. I could spend hours on that app, and that's like wrong. Like I don't know how I can. So now, with all this being said, this is the perfect segue. This brings me into what we can do to limit our social media time. So I really suck at this, so I don't know who the hell I think I am giving out this advice. I feel like the 2 best pieces of advice that I can give is to delete the app, like whatever app you feel like is not working for you in terms of like, oh my God, I'm so addicted to this, like delete it. Or, because that like scares me, even though I obviously just doled out advice because it works and I have friends who've done it and it works. But you could also, a more tame version of this is to just put a screen time block filter on it. In your settings, you go to your screen time and then you just block the app. I can only use this app 20 minutes a day, and then it'll block it. And then you have to go through this like little thing where you're like, give me 15 more minutes, like let me use it for the day type thing. But it's like one extra step. So you're kind of being checked, right? Like, okay, don't use the app anymore. And even though it doesn't work all the time, like I'll bypass it a lot. Like it helps. It definitely helps. Or as dumb as this sound, you guys, distract yourself in other ways. Like the other day, instead of scrolling through my phone from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I got up and did an online yoga class, and then I found myself not looking at my phone for like half the day, right? And it felt really good to like kind of unplug. But I suck because at the same time later that day I scrolled through TikTok for like an hour. But just in general, so I need to really take my own advice, but like, just in general, try to distract yourself with like other things. Even I feel like watching a movie is like better than just being stuck on like social media, right? But yeah, I'm like terrible at this. So I wanted to tap into one of my friends who is great at limiting her social media time. So I asked my friend Catherine a couple of questions about social media. So here she is talking about that.
Personally, I think the worst part of social media is that it forces us to make comparisons between ourselves and others all the time. And people only show the best parts of their lives rather than the complexities that come with being a human. We don't get to see the bad days, the sad days, the times when we all need a boost. Usually people only show the highlights of their life on social media. So I feel like it forces us to feel like we have to be positive or living our best lives all the time when that's simply not the case. My favorite social media app is probably Instagram, I would say, or Twitter, because, well, Twitter I think is just funny, and Instagram has a lot of different types of content that you can find, which I think is really interesting. I usually look for like fashion content or memes or funny videos, things like that. Personally, what I do to limit screen time is I will set screen time limits on my phone, or I will give myself time where I will log out of the app for a day or two or a few days. There's been times where I've deleted apps for a few months just to give myself kind of a mental recharge. And I would suggest that other people look at adding screen time limits to their phone. Mine are really small in the amount of time I give myself on each app, but that's just to regulate my own behavior, and obviously I go over those limits sometimes, but I try to keep it below an hour or so on each app just to give myself time to be productive and to give myself time to just be alone with my own thoughts instead of trying to fill them all the time. But yeah, I hope that's helpful and that makes sense.
So thank you, Catherine, for sharing your lovely insights about social media and what you do to limit your social media time. I wish I could be more like you, because I certainly suck in this department. But I think the biggest takeaway that I want to take from making this episode, and I hope that all you know after listening to this episode, is that social media is like a big facade, right? Everything you see, take it at face value. Never compare yourself to anyone, and just know that these people who overtake your screen are human too. Don't be mean to others online, and try to keep yourself happy by not letting social media take over your life, right? So much easier said than done, but maybe me highlighting some of this will just make you all, including me, think a little more. Well, thank you to my guest, Catherine, and thank you all for listening. Catch you next week when I discuss a brand new topic that makes life so stellar. Have a happy and healthy day. Bye.